Hey, world, what up? I'm gonna give my take more into the Giannis Antetokounmpo potential trade saga, beginning of the 2025 NBA season as we're approaching um, here this week. Now, looking into the Eastern Conference landscape of things, the Milwaukee Bucks do have championship aspirations. Now, do they have the tools and pretty much the resources to pretty much get this done with? I don't think so. As my expectations for the Milwaukee Bucks, they're looking as a first or second round exit comparing to the Eastern Conference out there. Remember, you have the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to throw in the Orlando Magic, who are going to be an X Factor underdog of a team. And I haven't even mentioned Miami. I think I threw in the 76ers in there already with Denso. So the East is pretty much locked as it is within those 8 to 9 teams. Milwaukee, as of last season, got bounced in the first round to the Indiana Pacers in 6 games as Giannis was hurt, did not play that series, and Dame and Chris Middleton weren't enough to get it done with against a young Indiana Pacers team who haven't made the playoffs in a hot minute. Let's look into more of Giannis Antetokounmpo with his potential trade rumors and kind of give more details into there. All right.
Internet buzzing. Giannis, he was doing an interview with Sam Amick of The Athletic and said this as a Bucks staffer walked by, quote, "If we don't win this year, would you get fired? Do you have it in the back of your mind? What is it this year if it doesn't go well?" That's what he's saying to staffer. Yeah, if we don't win a championship, I might get traded. Yeah, this is the job we live. This is the world that we're living in. It's everybody. Okay, I mean, sure, it is everyone. That's good. That's diplomatic. But, Brian, how much should Bucks fans be reading into that comment?
Well, listen, if I'm a Bucks fan right now, you should be in quote-unquote shambles. The Damian Lillard experiment is not quote-unquote ideal. Damian Lillard does not want to be in Milwaukee. He wants to be in Miami or potentially elsewhere as he's looking in the landscape. Milwaukee had their year in 2021. Now, within the last 3 seasons, they got bounced in the second round to Boston in 2022 in 7-game series. They got bounced the following year to the Miami Heat in the first round series, being the number 1 seed and losing to the Miami Heat, who were the 8 seed, who proceeded to the NBA Finals. So those are back-to-back teams who made the finals. And then the following year, in 2024, got bounced in the first round with Giannis being hurt to the Indiana Pacers. The expectations for Milwaukee is to not be a first or second round exit. They have to be, quote unquote, for this to work, to go to the NBA Finals, let alone win it. A conference finals appearance, I could see how head management would be an urgency to pretty much keep that core together, but still make some moves. But if they get bounced in first, second round, don't be surprised if they make a trade for Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and as well as blow it up.
Well, first off, if you don't do your job in Milwaukee, you do get fired. They fired 2 coaches within a couple of months of each other last year. So that goes without saying. And I think Giannis has this framed a little bit differently than Bucks fans would see it. If the Bucks don't win a championship year, would Giannis want to be traded? They would never trade him if he didn't want to be. And so that's the question.
And let me backtrack when I say that. They would make that trade because Giannis Antetokounmpo within the last season or 2 has been hinting subliminally about potentially being traded, moving elsewhere. And if they were to get bounced early in the playoffs, Giannis will request that trade. He will require it. And that's when they will be forced to pretty much blow it up, get him off, and then there's no sense to keep Damian Lillard at 34 years of age. So they would have to trade him off. Chris Middleton being at 32, 33, potentiality, they can't trade everyone all at once per se. But Giannis and Damian Lillard would be the main guys to pretty much be gone.
And it's one of the things that a lot of people in the NBA are wondering. What happens if the Bucks, for a 3rd consecutive year, have a disappointing end to the season? Now, Giannis extended his contract before last year. He's done nothing but show, faith in the Bucks franchise and put his faith in with contract extension after contract extension. But there is no doubt that, however you want to parse this, that there's very high stakes on this season for the Bucks.
Yeah, one thing I would change about the quote that we had up on screen that Giannis said, at the very end he said, it's everybody. I would just insert one word, almost everybody. It's not Giannis, meaning at no point will any internal discussion ever take place where they, without discussing this with Giannis Antetokounmpo say, hey, maybe we should look into moving him. I think what Brian is saying is right. It almost, in a way, leaves him an out. Potentially, if they flame out this year, for Giannis to go in internally and say, hey, maybe we look at blowing this up, and it has to be initiated by him. I do think the best of the version of Lillard and Antetokounmpo we are about to see. I think that was a transition year in a lot of ways for Damian Lillard. You're going to see their best basketball this year, and I do think Milwaukee's going to have a better version on the court than what we saw a year ago.
Well, and it's
debatable. You had Adrian Griffin, which the team finished, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, defensively, there were some question marks within that, but they were able to pretty much catch a flow. Mid-season, they let him go, brought in Doc Rivers, which proved to be on a losing spree, right? And especially getting bounced in the first round. Even though they did not have Giannis Antetokounmpo, there was not the quote-unquote adjustments to pretty much get it done with. Again, Damian Lillard is going to be now 33, going to be 34 years of age this season. He's not getting any younger. So you're going to need an emergence of Giannis Antetokounmpo within this team to pretty much get it done with. They don't have any depth. They have a bunch of old guys out there on one-year contracts. This team does not have the makeup to pretty much make a deep playoff run. I don't see it, especially when you have other teams in the Eastern Conference. There's no way they're going to match up and get past the Boston Celtics. Then you're going to have to go against the 76ers, the New York Knicks, the Orlando Magic, which I have more faith in the Magic right now than the Milwaukee Bucks. The Indiana Pacers, which that could be a 7-game series if upon healthy between both teams. So the Bucks either in the first round or get matched up against the Magic, the 76ers, the Pacers or so. Now, if the Bucks go against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I could see that going in Milwaukee's favor.
Important to remember, Perk, that we didn't see a healthy Giannis or really a healthy Dame at the end of last season.
We didn't. And look, they're going to both have to be great, right? When you look at this roster, do they have some talent, but not? Yes, they do. But they don't have enough talent, especially to compete in the Eastern Conference. And I strongly believe that this is the message that Giannis Antetokounmpo is sending to the front office, right?
And Giannis has been sending this message within the last season or two. If you keep your eye on it, he's been doing that. And especially, listen, this core with Giannis, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Brook Lopez, it's nice, right? They won a championship, but this is pretty much long overdue. This is a season or two overdue within this core. They had what they had. They maximized it at their peak, at their primes. Now it's too little, too late. And I haven't even talked about their bench yet. That right there is not ideal.
The last time he sent the message, the front office went out and got Damian Lillard. Giannis Antetokounmpo is very familiar and aware of what's going on around the league. If you think that he didn't watch the Boston Celtics run through the postseason last season and go win a championship, you're crazy. If you think he's not watching what the Knicks have done this past offseason, especially after...
Listen, Milwaukee's always been a defensive-minded team. Damian Lillard does not fit this team and their scheme of things. And then now they let go of Bud and they brought in, well, even they let go of Adrian Griffin also. Then they bring in Doc Rivers, which Doc Rivers can't handle this team's chemistry. They don't have the respect for him, let alone the staff on there, especially David Fizdale. No, letting go of Drew Holiday was pretty much the biggest mistake for Milwaukee. Now, they were in desperation mode due to being bounced in the first round, losing as an 8 seed, letting go of their coach. Giannis is complaining. So they had made a big move. I can't really blame them too much on that, but they didn't bring in the right defensive players to pretty much back up the bench.
Getting Karl Anthony Towns right after getting Mikal Bridges, you're crazy. He watched what the Philadelphia 76ers went done. And so every time I see a message like this from Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's almost like he's sending a subliminal message to the front office and saying, I have championship on my mind. Do you guys have championships on your mind?
I always go back to right, and I always go back to right after they won the championship in 2021. I was sitting with Giannis. It was just a couple of hours after they won. He'd gone and gotten IV fluids because he was so exhausted. He comes into our little interview room. He's holding the Larry O'Brien in one hand. He's holding his Finals MVP trophy in the other one, and he sits down and he's smiling ear to ear, and he says, you know what, if I never win another championship, I'm happy. I did it the right way. I did it this way. I am happy. This is what it's all about.
Well, that's easier said than done, being in the moment back then. But now, after 3, 4 years of not getting deep in the NBA playoffs, there are now talks of Jokic and Embiid being better than you as the best player in the world, and even throwing in Luka Doncic. That takes a toll on your ego, especially losing. And now, not you being the number one guy pretty much out there in the NBA landscape. Remember, after Giannis won the NBA championship in 2021, he was 26 years of age. We pretty much crowned Giannis as the best player in the world, and we thought this was pretty much going to be his league. We thought by now, with Giannis being 29, he would at least have one more NBA championship under his belt, let alone another finals appearance or two. That has not been the case. What does that leave Giannis Antetokounmpo right now? Your ego's hit. You have a bunch of young players and young teams coming up, and your organization right now is not even the favorite in the Eastern Conference, let alone potentially not even a favorite for an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Giannis is in that mode when it comes to NBA players to where in their 30s, if they pretty much played with the team for a while, won one championship or barely any, and you're that top guy out there, a top NBA player of all time, you're going to make that move. Look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He won one championship in Milwaukee, left over to LA. Shaq made a finals appearance with the Orlando Magic, move over to the Lakers. This happens in the NBA. It's not a big deal. It's not a big thing. But this is going to keep the Milwaukee Bucks organization feet on the fire.
Obviously, that comes in the glow of just moments ago winning a championship, and he is allowed to feel differently after a couple of years, because once you get a taste of that, you kind of want to go for it again.
And you also see your peers continue to win championships, right? While you're sitting home when the season ends, you're not in that final round. That also influences the way you think.
Absolutely. I think if Giannis could do it and replicate it, though, the way they did in 2021, he's the type of guy. He wants to be able to do it that way. To your point, Perk, he wants the organization to come along with him. All right.
Yeah, and listen, as he won that first NBA championship in 2021, being 26, we pretty much now, the greatest players in the NBA have pretty much won their first championship around 26, 27, and then they cooked it off. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Michael Jordan, so on and so forth. Steph Curry, so on and so forth. So with Giannis, after winning that first championship, we expected him to pretty much be the best player in the league and to dominate by pretty much racking up more finals appearances, more MVPs, more championships. And him at 29, about to be 30, they're expected to not win another championship. And where does that leave him? Being 29, 30 years old, only with one NBA Finals appearance. That can't happen. That cannot happen. So I can see why, and especially him being in his prime. So there's some urgency over for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I do not blame him. Let's see what happens in the NBA landscape in the season and see what happens with the Milwaukee Bucks. All right.